first round draft pick, rookie of the year, and then going to win the championship. And then everything after that follows is not as successful as that year. Then will people look at you as a success story, or will they look at you as a failure?
Real life. It ain't real life. Just ain't real life. Street Starz. You know what time it is.
You know, back in the day, there was always that thing to catch one, right? Catch one. Did you get caught up in catching one versus lyricism, and then that was the thing that stuck to you and you just had to ride it out, or was it?
My whole career been a gift and a curse. I'm to keep it real. When I recorded This Is Why I'm Hot as a record, I did it based on frustration. It came from a place of frustration. Creativity, but also frustration. Being a New York artist, being somebody that was heavily influenced by lyricists. I'm not saying I was a lyricist. I'm saying I was heavily influenced by lyricists. So whenever I would approach a record back then, the record would have to have some type of lyrical content. You know, even if I was talking about a club or party, and it had to have some type of lyrical content. And I remember the time I recorded This Is Why I'm Hot, my manager at the time, also a good friend of mine, Chris Fields, he came to my house with a beat CD. And the beat CD was like really Southern driven. Like it had these Southern driven records to it. And not that I ever had an issue with anything South related, but like hearing the beats, my initial approach with these beats was, I'm gonna out rap it. I'm gonna over rap out. I'm gonna do New York, but on a Southern beat, I'm just gonna do the New York style.
Right.
And I remember like us like going back and forth, and we started joking, and I'm like, yeah, you know, but that's not what the people want to hear. They want to hear something more simplistic. And I started freestyling, and my freestyle basically was just freestyling words. And the first thing that came to mind was, this is why I'm hot. Hey. This is why I'm hot. And I started just repeating it. This is why I'm hot. And I kind of like accidentally like said, okay, well, damn, that's kind of catchy. And it became me going from wanting to lyrically overtake a record to me just saying, yo, you know what? Let me just simplify it. Let's try that approach. And it's a gift and a curse, because that record is such a huge record for me, my life, my career, the people around me, what I've been able to do. But it never defined me as a musician. So when you catch a record like This Is Why I'm Hot, and then you got to go in the studio and deliver an album, your mind is like, yo, what do I do now? Where do I go now? And if you listen to Music Is My Savior, my first project, it was a confusing project to put out because I was in the middle of this huge bubblegum style record, but like behind this, my undertone was just totally different. So if you listen to the album, it has a mixture of music. I think there's one other record that gave me like a This Is Why I'm Hot feel, which is called Superman, but everything else was like authentic to me. And I think it went over a lot of people's heads. They didn't get it when I did it then.
Right. So do you feel like, because the crazy part is your album actually debuted at number 4. So it wasn't unsuccessful. It was a successful song. Yeah. This Is Why I'm Hot debuted at number 1. Mm-hmm. So yeah, do you have that like duality to you? Like, damn, I know I can do this. Yeah. I don't want to do this. I don't want this to be my defining sound. Yeah. And then how did the fans end up receiving that?
So funny thing is, and you know, everything happens, you don't realize when you're going through it. During my career, when I released the album, the LP, Music Is My Savior, This Is Why I'm Hot, this is when the digital era started like becoming. Yeah, it started. So I was on the cusp of going from moving CDs to moving digital downloads. Now I'm gonna school you to something here. When I did it, my first album, I think we moved 80,000 the first week. That was deemed unsuccessful. Number 4 on the chart at that time was unsuccessful, but I had moved already millions of digital downloads. So This Is Why I'm Hot had already crossed over millions of digital downloads by the time we released the album. And the world, the way they looked at it was 80,000 first week. That's disappointing, because you got Wayne, you got M, you got Kanye. These dudes are moving 1 million units out the gate the first week. And I moved 80,000. So immediately I got the backlash of, well, one hit wonder, you know, this, and it kind of, it was like what they call it, a kink in the armor. Right. And what people didn't realize at the time is that we were already going from that physical sale era into the digital era. and my career was like on the cusp of it. So if any artist was like transitioning from LPs to digital, it was me. And the first person in is always the one that get the most hate for whatever reason. So even though I could say now number 4 on the Billboard charts is not disappointing when you listen to it, play it back, at that time it was underwhelming for the people to receive it that way. And they didn't know how to calculate digital and physical sales. So there was none of that combination back then. Right. But in today's world, I would be considered a multi-platinum album, multi-platinum project. So, but everything is in what they say,
hindsight
is 2020. Yeah. So not only was I battling with the music side, I was also battling with technology, and that it put me in a very weird place as a musician, to where people were like, okay, well, is this project successful? Is it unsuccessful? Did he do it? I mean, first year we moved, I think like 18 million in gross sales for Capitol Records. So behind the scenes, it was very successful. Right. In front of the camera, it didn't look that way. So
right. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing about music, right? Because you do come back out with another hit move, right? Which is another anthem. Yeah. One question I want to ask you, what is the difference between a hit and an anthem, right? Because a hit is that, but an anthem, we still playing anthems. Yeah. we still walk it out. We still doing the Cupid Shuffle. We still doing that. So what is the difference in money hit versus an anthem? So
it's funny. I followed up This Is Why I'm Hot with a record called Like This off my second album. Right. It was also a top 10 record at radio. And once again, any artist in today's space, if they're trying to get top 10 Billboard or top 20, whatever, that task alone is hard. But when you got that big number 1, numero uno, sitting on top of it, and you comparing whatever comes after to that, most artists, there's not a lot of artists that are successful for a long period of time that can even say they have the number 1 position in the world. So that top 5, top 10, top 20 Billboard is still an accolade that shouldn't go unnoticed. But when you putting it against, my analogy is this: I like basketball. Imagine me being first round draft pick, rookie of the year, and then going to win the championship. And then everything after that follows is not as successful as that year. Then will people look at you as a success story, or will they look at you as a failure? And I've always kind of used that analogy with regard to my career. My first record out the gate commercially that people got to see went number 1. Everything else after that kind of, top 10, maybe I think Move was like top 40. Right. So to answer your question, the difference is Like This, Move, those are records that still to this day people tag me, they dance to in dance studios. Like This, especially like in the Asian market, that record was to me, in my opinion, just as successful, or if not more successful than This Is Why I'm Hot. And Move, just being what it is, it's just one of those hip hop records, no melodies, no nothing, just straight hardcore 808 and just hard lyrics. They're all 3 different records, 3 different categories, 3 different movements, and I appreciate them all for what they do in markets. Like if I come to Dallas, they may appreciate This Is Why I'm Hot more. Right. But if I'm in Tokyo, they want to hear Like This, and I think that's the beauty about music.
Now, there was a report that says you did, like you said, you generated 18 million, but you only got 30,000. Yeah. How is that possible? That sounds extremely predatory, like over predatory.
Trust me, is not something that I wouldn't say I'm not proud at the moment, because I had no control of it. I think what happens, what I learned is that so when I initially started being a musician, I started it with the mindset of being a businessman first. So like my goal was, I looked at the people that came before me and the record labels that had the success of owning their own labels and things like that. So my approach in it was, my first deal, I wanted to have a joint venture situation. I didn't want to be signed to any record label as an artist. And what happened is we talked about digital downloads and LP. Being on the cusp of the digital download era and the LP era, there was a clause in my contract that gave the right for a 20% distribution fee to be taxed on by the label. However, at that time, going into digital download, there was a confusion as to whether or not a digital copy of a record would be considered a part of distribution, because all it takes is the enter button to push the enter button, and you send a record off to millions of people. And we went through a litigation. Not only did we go through litigation, but we went through we did a forensic audit with the label to just figure out where the money was spent. Because once again, 18 million generated, labels saying they spent this amount of money, and then after that money is spent, JV, a true partnership, says whatever's left over, we split 50-50. And that's the problem. When it got to what was left over, there were so many expenses attached to it that that I think myself and my business partners collectively, for the first check, walked away with I walked away with like 30 grand on my first check. And it was disheartening, because when any artists out there can relate to this, when you get your first one in the game and you get out, that first record is years of a movement. That's not, yo, let me just go in the studio and make this record. That's the blood, sweat, and tears. That's the, being on the grind 24/7, not sleeping, getting in a caravan, driving around the country, promoting and pushing music. And when you get robbed, or in my mind, when I felt like I got robbed for the money that I deserved, it made me feel like it didn't make sense to do music, because I could have went to McDonald's and worked for $30,000 for all the work that I put in. So yeah, I mean, still to this day, it's more or less a question mark. I do understand how they process things. But that's just the record labels. They're predatory. That's what they do. They want you to be able to fight them in court. They want you to go to litigation. A litigating attorney at bare minimum for a good one is $650 an hour. And we went through 7-year litigation. So I'll let y'all do the math. It's a lot of money to fight, you know?
Drake has accused his label of manipulating streams, sabotaging his career in order to, maybe downplay his value in order to where he signs into the lesser value. Do labels play like that?
I think labels are capable of doing anything. I'm not anti-label. And by the way, my catalog is owned by the same label that owns Drake's catalog. I'm with UMG. Gotcha. I was with Capitol Records at the time, which was bought out by UMG. Labels are capable of anything. The way I look at it is the person who holds the gold makes all the rules, right? Like that's the name of the game. If I'm collecting the money, I can do whatever I want with whatever I want until it's time for you to come get it. And when you got to come get it, you got to pay somebody to give you the advice that you need to go get it. I think I'm not too sure what Drake's case is about. I'm not for certain what it's about, but if you ask me if I think that the label is capable of cheating one of the highest grossing rap artists in history, absolutely, 100%.
Is that you being an artist, right? When you hear things like that, you obviously being on the same label, is that disheartening to say, damn, it could even happen to Drake, somebody who put out the most number ones we've ever seen? You know what's disheartening to me is, and we kind of talked about this before we started to record. The disheartening part to me is having the OG that comes to you and says, hey, watch out for this, watch out for that. Hey, they might do this. You got to double check that part. I think with Drake is powerful enough right now in his career that he doesn't need a record label. I'm not a part of his camp, and I'm pretty sure he's got some real business savvy people rocking with him. But like, let's be real. We live in a streaming era. We live in an era where social media is prevalent. You don't need a record label. And a record label may get mad at me for saying that, and I challenge anybody at a record label to tell me what is the necessity behind the need of a record label at this point. You get your music, you promote your music online, you get the people to come rock with you and see it, you go out on tour, and the rest is history. What the record labels are good for, however, is when you get to a point where you've exhausted all your resources to making something blow up, they're good at throwing fire on it afterwards, right? They're good at basically taking something that already has a movement and making it bigger. That's because they have the manpower to do it. But you can do the same thing if you go out and hire people
to get the job done. This game is not like, there's a lot of gatekeeping in the business, but it's not impossible for an artist to do it independently. So I value now a person who's independently has an independent mind frame, because like you don't need a record label.
Right.
You tell me what you need them for. Okay,
right.
Great. But I'm a product of understanding what record labels do, and it's not a necessity to have one.
So let me ask you this. So let's say artist A, hot song, the streets love it. It's going crazy on YouTube. I feel like a lot of people go to the record label because they feel like there's a lot of doors they can't get in, or that there's that button there's the button that they push, right? We all think about that button that they push where it's seen by everybody. Is that button real? And if it is real, can an independent artist push that button?
So the button, what the button is money. Let's be real. That's the button. The button is money.
Right.
And once again, I'm not gonna put anything on blast. I'm not talking about payola or anything that. But let's be real. If I got a record that is semi-moving in the streets, depending on where it's moving at, the goal is, however I did it in that market. Let's say we in Dallas. However I did it in Dallas, I got to do that in 50 other, 100 other cities in 50 other states.
Right.
So it's all money. I mean, it's all about getting in people's faces and really getting them to understand the commitment. The beauty about social media, though, is that it cuts that down. So now I have direct to consumer, right? So once you tell me I can go direct to my consumer and I can pay for the visibility of that, then it's just money. Like if you talking YouTube, then run a YouTube campaign, right? Here's the simplest thing for people to get started with.
Let's talk about
artists out there.
All right.
You just shot a video.
Yep.
Your video is similar to the video of Drake or Travis Scott or one of these big artists. Run a campaign that at any time someone goes on YouTube to watch Drake's video, you got the trailer, you got your trailer.
The ad clip.
Yeah. So I mean, it's simple, right? Like the visibility is to be paid for. And then if someone sees your video trailer running before a Drake or a Travis Scott video, who these guys are getting billions of views, and they like your video, it gives them one click closer for them to becoming a subscriber, a liker, a follower, or whatever it is you need, and then you just keep hitting them again. I don't want to make it sound simpler than it is, but like, come on, like, it's a no-brainer at that point. However, there's artists out there that don't want to put that type of work in, right? So they're more relying on, when I came up, and this is before anybody ever had home studio. I think I saw T-Pain post something about his road studio. He had the M-Box, the Avid M-Box, but like I had a home studio when I was 15 years old. I was operating off a program called Cakewalk.
Oh yeah, I remember Cakewalk, Acid Pro.
Exactly. I was recording myself. My whole career, I've recorded my own music. My whole career, I've marketed and promoted my own music. My whole career, I've gone out on a limb to say, hey, I need visibility. And then what ends up happening is people see how much work you put in. They start to kind of come around you and believe in the same vision. And then these people start to get the vision and the word out. And then they get to people who get the vision and the word out. And before you know it, you got this big circle of people who just want to see you win because you put the work in. Simple. So a lot of people will get mad because they like, I need a record label to help me out. And I need a record label to pour fire on the thing, because they just don't want to do the work themselves.
Right. Man, you being from New York, right? I just got to ask this, right? When you did get hot with This Is Why I'm Hot, did anybody look at you funny? Was there any tension that came out of that? Because, as a lyricist, people are going to try you. Yeah. That's just what lyricists do. Y'all are competitive, smack. You know how that shit go. So when you got hot, was there anybody just like, you felt like, man, I might have to lyrically put him down?
Yeah. You know what? My team would hate me for saying this, but shout to like my OGs, I say, like shout to my boy Bad Seed. People at the time, I would say, shout to Red Cafe, shout to Saigon. All of the OGs in New York that I really got to rock with. And there's some other names on that list that I really like rock with.
And Saigon was a monster.
Yeah, shout out to Saigon. I feel like there were people who would embrace me because they knew I was from New York, And I had records with other people, but what people heard was the commercial side of me.
Right.
So when you hear the commercial side of MIMS, of course, like, yeah, he doesn't got lyrics, he doesn't got bars. But then like when I jump on certain records, or like my first tour, my first national tour, I was the opening act for Method Man. Like there's things that I've done in my career way before This Is Why I'm Hot that put me not necessarily on the map, but just gave me a different perspective of how music operates and works and the music business.
Shout out Reallyfe Street Starz, nigga. Move. Hey.